So, hello everyone, and welcome to the Diagramming with yEd webinar. My name is Thomas. I'm your presenter today in this webinar, and I will give you an introduction to the yEd Graph Editor application. We will start with a tour of the user interface, then briefly touch the import and export capabilities of yEd, and then dive into creating diagrams and editing them. A recorded version of this webinar will be available in a few days on our website and on YouTube in our yWorks Tube channel. And if you have any questions, you can ask them, and I will later answer them after the presentation. Now, what can you do with the yEd Graph Editor application? You can create and edit all sorts of diagrams, of course. For example, on the yEd homepage, you can see a small collection of supported diagram types. Here, for example, UML class diagrams, flow charts, or BPMN diagrams. But that's not all. Many people have many people who use yEd have sent us their diagrams that they've created, and there are many technical diagrams among them, but also fun things like a board game illustration. There are many scientific diagrams among them, technical, game, even art, which in the end is also a very scientific diagram. So you can use yEd for many different things, all things diagrams. Before we can create our own diagrams, we need to download and install yEd first. And you can do this. You can download yEd from here, from the yEd website, from the yWorks website, from the yEd homepage. Here, for example, is a platform-specific yEd installer for the Windows operating system. You can find even more downloads here when you follow this link. Here, the tools and application section has all yEd installers that are available for Windows, for macOS, and for Linux. Okay. The installation procedures for the installers are rather simple, and you can quickly install the application on your favorite platform, so you can run yEd rather quickly for the first time. Before we switch to the application in a moment, let me briefly add some words on the terminology used in yEd. Now, I have used the term diagram so far, but when we will use yEd, when we work with the user interface or reading the integrated yEd help pages, we will encounter terms like graph and node and edge and so on, almost everywhere. These terms stem from the mathematical origin of the diagramming subject matter, but you will see we will quickly get accustomed to them. So with the special terminology noted, let's turn to the application. Now, remember, we have just installed yEd on our computer, and what we see here now are, well, the factory settings and how yEd presents to you for the first time. This is the user interface of the application, and you can see on top there's a toolbar with many icons that you can use that are for creating new documents or saving them, for cut, copy, paste actions, zooming in, and these are quick access buttons. Then we have the tool windows on the left here. We have tool windows on the right here. And in the middle, we have the main thing, the canvas, where we create diagram and edit diagrams. Okay, So the tool windows on the left. You see the overview here, and the overview is quickly explained when we open a diagram. In the overview, you can see always the entirety of your diagram. So no matter how much you zoom in, you can you can always see all your diagram, all of your diagram in the overview, and you can pan and change the view part of your of the canvas. You can also zoom in with the mouse wheel in the overview window, or you can change the zoom with this black knob. And then also on the left side, we have these context views. There are different ones which you can use to see local connections in your diagram. For example, I've selected this node, and now I see in the neighborhood view both successors and predecessors of the selected node. I can also concentrate only or focus only on the predecessors of the selected node. So this would be these two, or on the successors of a node, this would be this circle. Then we have the structure view. The structure view is best explained when we, no, not this one. When we have a diagram where we can see the different nodes, so you can easily focus on a particular node, and you can also see the nesting structure of a graph in the structure view. Okay, then on the right side, we have the palette, which shows in different sections different node and edge styles you can choose from to create your own diagrams. And you can drag and drop them from this palette section. There are also in this section people symbols, for example, people styles, or maybe flowchart from the flowchart palette section. Okay, and also on the right side, the properties view, which you can use to see properties of the diagram itself, because nothing is selected right now. It shows that the diagram itself has 0 nodes and 0 edges. Now, if I add some nodes, you see the number goes up and just 2 nodes for the diagram. And if I create an edge, then it's a new edge. It's counted here. For the diagram itself, the properties are shown when nothing is selected, but as soon as you select, for example, a node, you can see the properties of this selected element, or you can also see the properties of several elements. Now, these are grayed out because they are different for both nodes. And you can use the properties view to change the properties of the selected element. For example, for an edge, you can add another adornment on the start of the edge, or change type, the line type of the edge. So here we have a dashed edge. Or for nodes, you can change, for example, the width, or you can change the coordinates. Now this is rather handy when you want to be pixel perfect, so you can use the properties view for this. Okay, you can also change the user interface to your liking. For example, if you're not the kind of a guy who wants to have such narrow tool windows, you can enlarge them, of course, so you see more. You can also rearrange the tool windows so that, for example, this is here below the canvas. You can also, in the canvas, when you have multiple diagrams open, you can have them side by side. If you rearrange them like this, or you can have them on top of each other. Okay. Now, when you have created a diagram, you can also save it, and you can also load already existing diagrams. For example, this diagram has been prepared. And when you want to save it, you just use the save dialog. So yEd has the GraphML file format as a default for saving diagrams and loading diagrams, but you can also, of course, export your diagrams to different vector graphic or raster graphic formats. And you can also print your diagram on paper, of course. So now regarding creating a diagram manually, how do we do that? We can. I've already shown that you can drag and drop from the palette sections different node styles, and you can create edges the same way by dragging and dropping. You drag the edge from the palette section to the start node, release the mouse, and then you can begin the edge creation gesture. And you click on the end node, on the target node, and then you have created an edge, and you can move the nodes around, and the edge sticks to both the source node and the target node. Now this is for a long-time user of yEd, this is rather uncommon and a surprise, but because I've been used to, for example, clicking on the background here to create nodes, and this you can change in the preferences here. Here you can enable creating node on background click. So if I now click with the mouse on the background, then there is a node created. And this is rather useful when you have when you want to create a diagram or map of many similar styles, where you have all only rectangular nodes or something like that, you can rather quickly create the diagram. When you have this enabled, then it's quite important to note this blue rectangle in the palette sections, because this blue rectangle defines what's the default when you click in the background. So if I change this to a circle, for example, the default by a double click, via double click here on this style, then if I click here in the canvas, I create circles. The same is true, of course, for edges. And this one is selected and is selected, and this is the default style to create an edge. Okay, now edges can be created by drag and drop and can also be created now by drag and drop to the start node and then click to the end node. And can be created directly here. The gesture itself is rather easy. You hover over the source node, press the mouse, drag the mouse to the target node, and then release the mouse. So that creates a straight edge. You can also create a specific kind of edge, a self loop. This is, you start on a node and click, drag this edge outside of it, and then release the mouse once, and then go back to the node and click on it. So this is a self loop, and you can change the radius of the self loop by dragging this one bend. This kind of edge is rather special, and this self loop, and that's why there's a special gesture to create it. So we can also create edges that have bends in them. This is done by hovering over the start node, pressing the mouse, dragging the mouse, then release for the first bend, and then for second and third and so on bend, you click once with mouse left, and then you click on the target node. Okay. Should you have started the edge creation in error and you want to cancel it, then you can do this either by pressing the escape button to completely cancel the gesture, or if you have created many bends in an edge and want to cancel the bends only, then you can use mouse right button to cancel one bend after the other. And then if there's no more bend left, you cancel the edge creation altogether. Now, what's next? When you create a diagram, you have several keyboard shortcuts that will help you. You can, of course, use the regular cut, copy, paste actions. So you can select some nodes and you can copy them by Control-C and then paste them by Control-V. But you can also duplicate a node if you select it and then press Control-D. it's duplicated. So this is a quick shortcut for that combines Control-C for copy and Control-V for paste. If you duplicate a node that has a connection to another node, you will see that this also cares about the connection and duplicates that as well. And if you have a node selected and you use Control-W, you can rather quickly create the children nodes that are connected all to the same start node. Okay. Of course, you cannot only create, but you can go on and edit those nodes. You can change their properties, for example. So if you select one and drag the little black knobs, you can change the size of a node, or you can also move it about. If you select multiple nodes, all of your actions will be applied to all of the selected nodes, as well as when you move them. When you change the properties, when you change the size, either width or height, there are modifier keys that you can use as well. You can use the control key to have your resize so that the center is fixed of a node, and you can also use the shift key to have proportional resizing. So, and you can also combine these two if you press the modifier keys Control and Shift while resizing a node. You have this behavior that both the center position is fixed of the node, and you have the resize factors combined. So now I've done it multiple times already. I showed how we can select nodes. You can just single click a node. You can do a marquee selection to select multiple elements. This is also possible you can use the shift key and you can enhance a selection or add to an existing selection. You can also use shift click to remove from an existing selection elements. When you want to select multiple edges, you have to select one and then can marquee select another. And you can add to the selection by shift clicking. And you can also remove from an existing selection by shift clicking. So this is the same for both, for nodes and edges. You can also select all elements. This is done by Control A. And by default, if nothing is selected, or if a node is selected, then all nodes will be selected. And also you see that bends are selected as well. And if you have a pre-existing selection where an edge is in this selection, and then you press Control A, then all edges become selected. Okay, so that's about the selection. And we have seen how to create nodes and edges. And there are special nodes that you can use to group other nodes. And those are called group nodes, and you can create them via a context menu. So you create a selection, for example, and by mouse right-clicking, you open the context window and you choose the group command, and then you have a group node created that contains exactly the selected nodes, the previously selected nodes. So the group node is special in that way that when you move it, the nodes that are in it also move with it. And you can add more content, more group nodes by shift moving nodes into this one. So now this is contained in this group node, this node A, and you can also move them out of them by shift dragging them. If you just drag them to the side without the shift key pressed, then it's not part of the group node and doesn't move with it. So you can clear a group by just deleting it with the delete key. And you can also create edges inside this group node. So when you want to interact with group nodes, now the big advantage of group nodes is you can hide content from your graph if this is not very interesting, or if you want to concentrate more on what's outside of this group node. And you can collapse the group and expand the group again. You can also move into the group and view only the group's content and edit on this nested kind of diagram. And you can also, when you've done with the editing, you can move back to your previous view where you see the contents of the group node together with the group itself. Now in the structure view, you notice that you can see the nesting structure of your graph. This is the graph, this is the group node, and this is the context of the group node. You see the structure of your graph here pictured as a tree view. Okay, so we have several nodes here, and these have all labels. These are without a label. Now, how can you add a label to a node? You select the node and you press F2 when you're on Windows. When you're on macOS, you press the Enter key to start the editor to add some text to it. For example, you add text like first label to it. And you can also add a text that has multiple lines. This is done by shift clicking or control clicking. Both is possible to create a new line. For this label for a node. So you can also, when you select the node and press F2, you can edit the text, of course, and you can also you can select it and also copy from this text and then create by pasting a label on another node that has exactly the same text in it. So what you have seen now is that I've selected this and moved this label beneath the node. And I did this by selecting the label. Now, when I only click on these two elements on the node and its label, I can only select the node because it has a preference. For selecting the label, you need you need to use the control modifier, which brings you a cyclic selection from all elements that are underneath the mouse cursor. And this changes. Now it's the label selected, and now it's the node selected. And when the label is selected, I can use it to move it beneath the node. The label, as you can see, moves with the node. So these are nicely tied to their node. Okay, you can also add labels, of course, to an edge. Call it edge label. And the edge label moves with the edge when you make any changes to the edge path. For example, if you add another bend, this is just by clicking on the edge with the mouse and then dragging the path a little. And you can also delete them by pressing the delete key. Once we have selected them, select them, press delete key, or adding them by just dragging the edge path. So this edge label, we can move about the edge path, and we can put it here near the target node, or put it there near the source node. So there are some guiding lines that help you and show you where you can move a label. By default, the labels along an edge have rather continuous positions, so you can place it everywhere, here or there. You could also change the edge label model to have only discrete positions. This would work like this in the properties view, where all properties are displayed for a selected element. When you select a label, you see the properties of the label, and you could change the placement of it by clicking here on the ellipsis. It opens this dialog where you can change the placement model from smart free, which is the most the best model that you can have in terms of positions that are available along the edge path, to, for example, 6pos, which provides only a discrete number of 6 positions where you can place a label. If I release the label here, then it snaps to the nearest possible location. So, and if I move the edge about, then the edge label moves with it, and you can choose it here. So, but to have the best label model, I go back to smart free. Okay, so that's about editing a diagram and creating a diagram. And what you've seen with these guiding lines here is also available on a larger scale. For example, if you move a node, you can see this gray line, which is called a snap line, and it shows you that the centers of the nodes are level. or that nodes have a certain distance from each other, or that you can put them equidistantly between nodes. These are called snap lines, and they are enabled here with this quick access button. If you disable them, the snap lines disappear, and you don't have that much help to position your nodes nicely. So use them to position them aligned with other elements. Okay, nodes or your diagram can not only be arranged manually, you can also, and this is a large, rather great functionality of yEd graph editor. You can also use automatic layout algorithms. yEd offers quite a few of them. These are available here. You can choose from them here in the layout menu. And there are layout algorithms that arrange the entire diagram, or only calculate new edge routes, or only place the labels in a diagram nicely. So the different labels. One moment, please. So this is what the layout algorithms look like. As you have seen, there are quite a lot of them, and the main styles are here on this slide. Additionally, there are edge routing algorithms, as already mentioned, and labeling algorithms. And you can use them to automatically arrange your diagram. So besides yEd, we have also further diagramming tools created. The yEd graph editor application is a desktop application that you can use on major operating systems, on macOS, on Linux, and on Windows. And the yEd Live diagramming application you can use in the web browser. And you can find it on our website. This is the homepage of the yEd Live diagramming application. It runs directly in your browser, and you can start it here from our webpage. And you can use it, as I said, in your browser, and can create diagrams even on your tablet, for example. Then, not unlike yEd Live, you can use diagramming in this special context of the Atlassian Confluence wiki software. We've created a diagramming plugin that offers you the same functionality to create diagrams as yEd Live provides to you, and you can use it in your browser. This is the home page. This is the URL of the homepage of the Graffiti plugin, and the homepage looks like this. And we've just released a new version of the Graffiti plugin. You can see this. You can find this plugin in the Atlassian Marketplace, and you can use it, as I said, in the Confluence wiki software to create diagrams directly in your wiki software and share them with your colleagues. Okay, now that's about this. So have you got questions for me? That was the presentation now, and now to the questions. Okay, I can see. Yes. Can I use yEd on my tablet? Oh, yes. I just mentioned it. yEd Graph Editor itself is a desktop application, and it runs on Windows and macOS and Linux, but it doesn't run in the browser. And it doesn't run on tablets. But for diagramming on a tablet, you can use the yEd Live application, this one here, that you can start directly from our website. Okay. Oh, yes, good question. Can I add a second label on a connection? Yes, you can. In fact, you can add even more. You're not restricted to 1 or 2 labels. You can add an arbitrary number of labels, both to nodes and to edges. So now this is a connection line, an edge, and it already has one edge label. But when I select it and then open the context menu, I can choose add label and add a second edge label to place it here. Or select it and open the context menu and add a third edge label and place it here, for example. And they all move when the edge moves, and don't and stick to it and don't leave the edge. Okay, you can also add, of course, multiple labels to a node. This node has one label, it's 12. I can select it by control clicking it to cycle through the different elements. And then I can add a label, second 12, for example. And this is cyclic selection by pressing the control key and clicking on the label. Now I can move it to the right side, for example. Okay, so this is possible for both nodes and edges to add as many labels as you want to have. Next question. Okay, yes, the palette. The palette is rather a great thing for many things. The question is, are there only prepared icons available in the palette? This is not the case. These are factory provided symbols and styles that you can choose from. There are people here and icons for computer networks. But you can also add your own symbols to it. And you do this by using the context menu of the palette. And in the context menu, you can add a new section to your palette. My new section. And initially, this section is empty. Okay, so now I have my new section. And in this my new section, when I import symbols, and I can choose these, for example, and I can open them here. And now they're here in this palette section, and I can use them to create. I see. Okay. And I can use them. They are only outline icons. I see. So you have to hit the outline. Okay, and you can use these in your section. So this is importing your own icons. You can also do this. I've done this before with those icons. You can also do this. For example, we are using the Icon Finder service, which is a service where you can find icons that are free to use or have a license with them attached, license restriction. So, okay. Yes, that's great. Creative Commons, okay. I can import this directly from Icon Finder. And then I can use it in my diagram to create this. It's also possible to import SVG symbols. This is a rather big one. Okay, so this is how you can add more styles to the white palette. Is it possible to export my diagram to SVG? The next question. Yes, of course. When you have your diagram, you can export it not only to the BMP format, which you can see here, right? When you open the file dialog, there are quite a few raster graphics formats that are supported, and also vector graphics formats that are supported. SVG is among them to export your diagram to. And next question, how can I generate my own section in a palette? I've already shown this. So you're in the palette and you open the context menu and you create a new section with help of the new section command. Yes, of course. Okay. So that's for the questions. So thank you very much for attending this webinar. I'm glad you could join. And I wish you a happy diagramming with the wired graph editor application in the future. Okay, if you have feedback for us, you can send it always to webinars@yworks.com. Oh, okay. Okay. Someone wants to see the URLs for the Wired Live webpage and for the Graffiti for Confluence webpage. These are here. Okay. Thank you very much for attending this webinar. I'm glad you could join. Have a nice day. Bye. Happy diagramming.